This is a regular magazine. I'm Jason, and this is the first episode of our Blast from the Past series, and today we're going to take a look at Warmaster. Okay, before I get into looking at Warmaster, just a quick tell you what Blast from the Past is. Blast from the Past is going to be a series of videos where we check out games that are either no longer in production or ones that have been out of production and have just recently come back in to production. So let's kick off and just get on with Warmaster. In the pantheon of tabletop games by Games Workshop, Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Warhammer 40,000 are generally often dominate the spotlight. Yet nestled amongst these two giants lies a cult classic called Warmaster. It's a game that redefined large-scale fantasy warfare with its innovative mechanics and by using 10 scale. It was released around 2000 and was designed by Rick Priestley. Warmaster offered players a chance to command vast sort of armies in the Warhammer world, and it blended tactical depth with the chaos of war. Now, though it's discontinued, it has been kept alive by the community, and it endures. Its legacy is endured through those dedicated fans and as well as creative revivals. Now, Warmaster emerged during a golden era of Games Workshop's experimentation. Now, unlike its 28mm counterparts, it focused on 10mm miniatures. This allowed players to field sweeping armies of hundreds of troops, monstrous creatures, and war machines on a single table. Now, it was set in the rich universe of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So it had factions like the Disciplined Empire, Savage Orc Hordes, and the Eerie Undead Legions, which all clashed in battles that felt truly epic in their scope. Now, at its core, Warmaster was a game of strategy and uncertainty. The command system required players to allocate limited command tokens to their generals, who then issued orders to nearby units. Rolling a d6 against the unit's leadership value with determined success. A low roll could leave entire flanks paralysed, which mirrored the sort of fog of war. Now, this mechanic forced players to balance aggressive manoeuvres with the risk of losing control, creating tense dynamic battles. Now, some of the key features included alternating activations where players took turns moving units, keeping this sort of engagement fairly fluid. There would also be blitz moves, high risk, high reward charges that could break enemy lines or leave units overextended. Army composition, generally armies were built around heroes, infantry and cavalry and artillery, each with their distinct roles. Units were grouped into multi-stand formations, emphasizing sort of cohesion and positioning. Now, the base game included 6 factions, and these were the Empire, Chaos, Orcs, Dwarves, Undead, and High Elves. Then, in 2001, Warmaster Armies expansion added Dark Elf, Skaven, and a number of variant lists. And then, in 2002, they brought out what was called Warhammer Ancients, which adopted the system to historical conflict and which broadened its appeal. Campaign supplements that introduced narrative-driven scenarios, enriching the game's lore replayability. Now, despite its critical acclaim, Warmaster was phased out in the late 2000s as Games Workshop shifted focus. Yet the community refused to let the game fade. There were been a lot of fan-led initiatives like Warmaster Revolution, which updated the rules, the army lists, and another aspect has been 3D printing. this has revived this sort of access to 10mm miniatures. Then there's been a plethora of online forums, and there's been tournaments that have kept the game alive, and it's celebrating its blend of accessibility and depth. So why has Warhammer endured? Well, they carved a niche by emphasizing sort of grand strategy over individual heroics. It's scaled down models and command mechanics, offered a kind of a fresh perspective on warfare. It appealed to veterans and newcomers alike. I mean, today it stands as a testament to innovative design and is remembered for challenging players to think sort of like generals, balancing ambition, logistics, and the caprices of battle. Though it's no longer in production, Warmaster does remain quite a beloved chapter in wargaming history. Its influence echoes in modern titles that prioritise strategic command, and its community's passion ensures that the epic sort of 10mm clashes continue on tabletops today. And for those seeking a game where wit outweighs brute force, and where every roll of the dice could spell triumph or complete disaster, then Warmaster is a hidden gem waiting to be sort of rediscovered. So Warmaster, whilst it's not in production, it is there are fan-based versions that are still available. I'll include a link down below in the description, where the community has kept the game alive. They've updated the rules and they've streamlined it and everything else. And all those are the PDFs of those rules and army lists and etc. are available free. And then with the sort of a coming of 3D, that's given it a boost again, because suddenly 10mm wargaming become popular again. I mean, it's never gone away, but it's suddenly there's been a resurgence and surge of people suddenly wanting to play 10mm. I myself have dropped down to playing some 10mm stuff, and what I found was it's very easy to get a hold of 10mm armies now. There are several manufacturers producing it, and then there are several 3D guys that are printing 3D armies, making 3D STLs and prints available for you to buy online. But it's also the terrain. Now with the explosion of 3D, getting a hold of 10mm terrain is really easy, and some of it's exceptionally good quality. I mean, I bought several pieces online, and they're easy to store, they're easy to paint, and they do look really nice. And I think that's the whole thing of that 10mm. You can put a big battle on a 6x4. I mean, you can go down to a 4x4 with 10mm, and it still won't look sort of out of place on a 4x4. And it's relatively easy to store. It's relatively easy to build an army, and it's price-wise, it's a really nice sort of price point at that scale. And so, with, like I said, with the invention of 3D, there's a lot more available online. It's a lot easier to get hold of. And Warmaster is one of those rule sets that I really like. It's got some really nice touches to it, and I like the fact that you're playing the position of a general, looking down on the battlefield, controlling your massive army. And the rules and the community have kept those rules alive. And I said they've updated them, and so it's now quite easy to get into Warmaster. All the rules are available, are free. There's a plethora of stuff out there in 10mm to sink your teeth into, sort of miniature wise and stuff like that. And it's not just fantasy. There's 10mm historicals and everything. So yeah, Warmaster was one of those games that should never really have got out of production, and I don't know why it did. I don't think it was given the attention it deserved in the past, and then it just became the victim of when GW got rid of specialist game section, and it just unfortunately fell victim to that when they decided to, at that point in Games Workshop's history where they got rid of all specialist games. That was one of them. And since they've since brought back specialist games, but they've not brought back Warmaster or a game of a similar nature at a smaller scale, such as 10 mil or 15 mil, which I kind of think they've missed the boat there. I think that scale is hugely popular at the moment. There's been a good core group of hobbyists that have continued playing that scale, but in recent years, with the advent of 3D and stuff like that, it's become even more popular. So you never know, it may come back as a product from Games Workshop, but even if it doesn't, like I said, there are community-led rules available, and the link will be down below. So yeah, check it out. It's worth checking out, I think, and playing some 10mm games. Anyway, that's all for this week, and that's the first of our Blast from the Past episodes. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I shall see you next time.